Can you do it after the Packers game? Silence. Plarnax slowly turned back to his tea, took a long, thoughtful sip. We may have made a small tactical error. Admiral Plarnax IX had seen many things in his long and questionably decorated career. He'd once watched an entire moon implode after someone sneezed on the wrong control panel. He'd personally led the invasion of a gas giant that turned out to be a balloon for a children's space festival. But nothing could have prepared him for Carl. Carl, wearing socks with sandals and drinking black coffee that tasted like burnt despair, had now somehow become the most powerful obstacle to the galactic dominion in 200 years. Not because he was particularly smart or strong, or even remotely aware of what was happening, but because Carl did not care. Carl was the human equivalent of a shrug, and the invaders didn't know how to handle that. Back on the ground, the alien squad was trying to regroup after the incident with the bowling alley. Commander Bloopnark, who had earned 17 medals for valor and 1 for accidentally destroying a vending machine during peace talks, was currently hiding inside a portable toilet. He was not proud of it. Outside, his soldiers were attempting to decipher Earth's communication systems. They tuned into what they believed was a distress signal. Turns out it was a morning radio show where 2 hosts argued about pancakes for 45 minutes, followed by an ad for something called foot fungus cream. "Is this a warning?" one trooper asked. Another shook his head. "I think it's some kind of ritual." Meanwhile, a local teenager named Jenna had already taken a selfie with one of the aliens, added heart emojis, and posted it with the caption, "Met a space frog this morning." 10-10 vibes. Within minutes, the photo had gone viral. Suddenly, Earth wasn't under attack, it was trending. The alien soldiers were quickly swarmed by curious humans, mostly armed with smartphones and questions like, "Do you guys believe in horoscopes?" and "Can you fix my Wi-Fi?" One alien was dragged into a debate about cryptocurrency. Another was forced to watch a 5-minute video on how to make lasagna using only a microwave and tears. Back aboard the ship, Plarnax was slowly coming undone. "They're not fighting back," he barked. "No, sir," Slurpax replied, watching live footage of 2 soldiers being pulled into a Zumba class. "They appear to be integrating." Plarnax stared at the screen. One of his troopers was now wearing sunglasses and holding a smoothie. "Why are they smiling?" "Sir, permission to speak freely?" "Granted." "I don't think these humans know they're being invaded." Plarnax blinked. "Then what do they think is happening?" Slurpax hesitated. "A public relations stunt, possibly for a new soda." This gave Plarnax a headache so powerful it caused 3 of his teeth to send resignation letters. Desperate for a show of force, he ordered a flyover of a major city. The fleet passed over Las Vegas. What they assumed would be a terrifying demonstration of alien dominance was mistaken for a new Cirque du Soleil act. The crowd applauded. Someone threw glitter. Even worse, the Admiral's personal attack drone was accidentally signed to a 6-month contract at a local casino as a backup dancer. Meanwhile, Earth's official response came from a temporary spokesperson named Darren, who had only been chosen because he happened to be near the phone when it rang. Darren, an intern for the Department of Mild Emergencies, answered the call with, "Hey, thanks for visiting. We hope you're enjoying the planet. Would you like a coupon?" Back on the flagship, Plarnax was pacing in tight, angry circles. "We tried to conquer a planet," he muttered, "and they offered us discounts." Worse still, his crew had started to adapt. Slurpax had discovered reality TV and refused to leave his quarters. The ship's weapons officer, Glab, had bought a skateboard online and was practicing ollies in the engine bay. Even the ship's AI had changed its voice to sound like a game show host. Plarnax snapped. "No more pretending. They will understand they are being conquered." But just as he activated the global override to deliver a proper invasion message, he was interrupted by a transmission from a human named Rita, who worked at a call center and had somehow rerouted their entire comms system. "Hi there," she chirped. "Before we proceed, can I interest you in a limited-time offer on long-distance data bundles?" Planax screamed into the void. At precisely 9:12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the United Nations Emergency Response Committee gathered for an urgent video call. There was only one problem. Nobody believed it was actually an emergency. The official summary of the situation, hastily emailed by a technician named Gary, read, "Possible alien invasion. Also, Carl is trending." Half the representatives joined late. One was in pajamas. Another thought it was a test drill and brought snacks. The chairwoman, Eleanor Greaves, a woman who had once diffused an international crisis by sighing loudly, adjusted her glasses and asked the question on everyone's mind, "Is this real?" Gary, who had been forcibly promoted to Earth's de facto alien liaison, nodded solemnly. "We have video confirmation, and one of the aliens is now on TikTok dancing with a golden retriever." There was a pause. "Is it a threat?" someone asked. Gary shrugged. "Honestly, I'm not sure, but the dog looks happy." Meanwhile, the alien troops were still trying to regroup after their failed attempt at shock and awe. Unfortunately, they'd landed in what Earthlings referred to as the Midwest, a zone where friendliness is both weaponized and mandatory. One squad attempted to secure a perimeter around a hardware store. Instead, they were invited to a barbecue by a retired bus driver named Hank. Hank didn't care where they were from. He just wanted help flipping ribs and someone to listen to his opinions about weather patterns. One alien, designated Unit 42B, tried to explain they were a highly trained assault unit. "Sure, buddy," Hank said, handing him a plate. "Now try the potato salad." Back aboard the irrefutable Victory, Admiral Planax 9 was going through all 5 stages of denial at once. His warboard, previously filled with tactical projections and orbital assault plans, had been taken over by a pop-up ad for colon cleanse in 7 easy steps that no one could figure out how to close. The alien crew was unraveling. One of the engineers had built a shrine to a local weather presenter. Another had started writing Earth-style romance novels under the pseudonym Lady Moonbiscuit. Even the fleet's elite security droid had joined a bowling league and refused to return fire on account of having found inner peace. Planax called an emergency meeting. "We are the conquerors," he shouted, "not the conquered." Silence. Then Glab, still holding his skateboard, raised a claw. "Sir, have you tasted the thing they call nacho cheese?" The Admiral turned a violent shade of purple. Meanwhile, humanity's official response continued its descent into absurdity. Brenda, the receptionist at a minor satellite office of Earth's Space Defense Initiative, which mostly handled Wi-Fi outages on the moon, was now tasked with composing Earth's first diplomatic message to the invading force. Her draft read, "Dear sirs, madams, or tentacled overlords, welcome to Earth. Please be advised that Thursdays are recycling days." It was accidentally sent. The aliens received it. Some found it charming. Others were confused. One soldier framed it. Back on the ground, alien units trying to occupy a shopping mall were captured and detained by mall security. Not military, not police, just Dave, a 56-year-old man with a flashlight and a dream. Dave had once stopped a teenager from stealing a hat. Now he had personally disarmed an alien warlord by asking if they had a receipt. Commander Bloopnark, still recovering emotionally from the bowling incident, was called in to extract his troops. But instead of a battle, he was confronted by a woman in a tracksuit who thought he was a lost cosplayer. She took him by the arm, said, "Come on, sweetie," and led him to a yoga class. He has not been seen since. And through it all, Admiral Planax watched, seething. How did this planet survive long enough to develop space-grade microwaves and yet fail to understand an intergalactic invasion? Slurpax cautiously entered the room holding a tray. "Sir, I brought you something called cinnamon swirls. I thought it might help. Planax opened his mouth to yell, then paused, took a bite. There was a long silence. This is the single greatest thing I've ever tasted. Slurpax nodded. Apparently, they eat it for breakfast, on purpose. Planax stared out the window. Earth turned slowly beneath them, glowing with potential and confusion. A planet armed not with lasers nor armies, but with carbs, chaos, and an unshakable resistance to taking anything seriously. They hadn't invaded a death world. They had invaded a buffet with a personality disorder. 3 days into the invasion, the Galactic Dominion forces had achieved exactly 0 of their objectives. They had not subdued the humans, seized their infrastructure, or even located a central government building that wasn't closed for lunch. What they had done was develop several unhealthy addictions and accidentally form a jazz trio. It began with a reconnaissance bot named Blink 7, whose job was to monitor human communication channels. After scrolling through 20 hours of social media, the bot refused to return to duty. Instead, it began uploading motivational quote graphics and arguing about astrology in the comments. From there, it escalated. A young alien soldier named Krundax, assigned to analyze human emotional patterns, accidentally watched an entire season of a show called The Bachelor. He emerged from the experience deeply emotionally compromised and with strong opinions about someone named Jessica. He then gave a heartfelt speech to his platoon about the fragility of love and the importance of following one's heart, and was promptly promoted to morale officer. Elsewhere, a communications expert named Vaughn was tasked with hacking into Earth's data networks. Instead, he discovered a series of cooking tutorials and became obsessed with learning to bake banana bread. His first attempt exploded. His second attempt was served at a neighborhood potluck. His third attempt won second place at the Wisconsin County Fair. First place went to a 9-year-old girl named Daisy. Vaughn swore eternal vengeance. The humans, for their part, remained almost willfully oblivious to the interstellar significance of what was happening. A few assumed the aliens were part of a movie shoot. Others thought it was a very immersive viral marketing campaign. One group of retirees believed it was a pop-up escape room and tried to solve the invasion with crossword puzzles and Werther's originals. A rogue battalion attempted to seize control of a television studio to broadcast a message of conquest. They were intercepted by the production crew of a daytime talk show and ended up sitting in plastic chairs, awkwardly sipping tea while being interviewed about what it's like to be a space invader. The episode was a ratings hit. Meanwhile, back on the flagship, Admiral Planax 9 was dangerously close to losing the last 3 brain cells, not actively trying to run away. The bridge was now decorated with lava lamps. Someone had installed a popcorn machine, and the ship's AI had taken to greeting him every morning with "Rise and shine, sunshine." His officers had dissolved into chaos. Slurpax now wore Hawaiian shirts and referred to himself as the Slurpinator. Glab had opened a smoothie stand in the hangar bay and was considering franchising. Even the ship's tactical droid had replaced its laser cannon with a karaoke mic and could frequently be heard belting out songs about heartbreak and deep space loneliness. Planax called for a full regroup. "This is not an exchange program," he shouted. "We are an occupying force." The crew blinked at him with glazed-over eyes. Slurpax raised a smoothie. "Try the mango pineapple. It changed my life." Planax clenched his fists. "I want to see results." "Where is the domination? Where is the fear?" Just then, a diplomatic envoy arrived. It was led by a woman named Tina, who ran a local PTA and believed in solving all problems with brownies and assertive communication. She marched aboard the ship, handed out welcome kits, and insisted that the Admiral sit down and use his inside voice. Planax, broken and bewildered, did as instructed. The ensuing negotiation involved 3 pots of coffee, a game of charades, and a long story about Tina's son Darren, who once flushed a calculator down a toilet and claimed it was an experiment in math. At the end of it, the Admiral agreed, without entirely understanding why, to a community potluck and a poetry night. Back on Earth, alien troops were integrating at alarming speed. One had taken up line dancing, another was leading goat yoga in a park. A third had invented an entirely new genre of music by accidentally playing a harp with his face tentacles. It charted in Sweden. The invasion had not failed. It had mutated. What was supposed to be a swift conquest had become a slow-motion cultural implosion. The humans were not resisting because they didn't recognize the threat. They didn't process the threat. To them, the invasion was just another Tuesday. Weird, yes, but so was the last one, and perhaps most terrifying of all. The aliens were starting to like it. By the end of week 1, Admiral Plarnax 9 had developed a twitch in his left eye, an aversion to ukuleles, and a severe allergic reaction to the word potluck. He hadn't come to Earth to join book clubs or taste cinnamon rolls. He had come to conquer, to lead a swift, elegant campaign of galactic domination. Instead, his warship smelled like popcorn and lavender air freshener, and half his elite soldiers were on waiting lists for yoga teacher certification. "This has gone on long enough," he growled, pounding the control console with enough force to launch a nearby stapler into orbit. He summoned every available commander. Glab arrived on a skateboard. Slurpax showed up holding a smoothie and a brochure for something called Finding Your Inner You. One of the lieutenants wore a glittery sash that read, "Best Hugger." Plarnax didn't yell. Not this time. He leaned forward, his voice low and cold. "We are taking the planet. Today." The officers fell silent. No more muffins. No more memes. No more poetry readings with emotionally vulnerable humans named Greg. Operation Galactic Grasp was launched at 700 hours with terrifying efficiency. The full fleet, 12 dreadnoughts, 48 cruisers, and a small shuttle accidentally registered as a food truck, descended across all major continents. The command was clear: assert dominance, use all resources, accept no baked goods. At first, it looked like it might actually work. A massive squadron landed in a financial district and issued a formal ultimatum. Unfortunately, they arrived during rush hour, and the only person who paid attention was a street performer dressed as a robot who gave them a thumbs up and asked for tips. Another group stormed a government building only to discover that it was closed due to plumbing issues. A notice on the door read, "Back after lunch, probably." The squad waited for 3 hours. No one returned. Commander Bloopnark, finally resurfacing from his yoga spiral, led a direct assault on a military base in Nebraska. His troops encountered a stern-looking guard who told them to take a number. The number was 67. They were currently on 22. While waiting, Bloopnark had a mental breakdown, adopted a kitten, and now goes by the name Cheryl. Desperate for real resistance, Plarnax deployed his most fearsome weapon, the Obliterator Cannon. Capable of turning entire cities into lightly seasoned rubble, it targeted a population center in central Texas. The weapon charged, the systems locked, and then nothing. It had been unplugged to make room for a karaoke machine. The Admiral screamed, "I don't care if they offer us coupons. I want Earth under my boot." Just then, a report came in. A human counterstrike had begun. Not with weapons, not with missiles, but with forms, legal forms, governmental paperwork, tax documentation, permits, applications, ID verifications. Plarnax's troops were instantly overwhelmed. One platoon was trapped at a Department of Motor Vehicles for 13 hours. Another was forced to fill out a visa request in triplicate, in cursive, without the aid of spell check. A commander attempted to declare the invasion legally binding and was instead roped into jury duty. They were buried in bureaucracy. One squad tried to requisition territory through local zoning laws. They were redirected to a meeting that had been cancelled since 2009. another alien applied for conquest rights and received a sternly worded rejection letter citing Clause 47B, no hostile takeovers during flu season. Even Planax himself wasn't spared. His attempt to seize control of Earth's global communication grid was thwarted by a cookie consent banner he couldn't figure out how to close. Every time he clicked accept, it just popped up again. He screamed so hard, he dislocated a nostril. The final straw came during a forced march through a suburban neighborhood. The alien war machine rolled down the street with pride, only to be stopped by a very serious child on a tricycle who demanded to know if they had permission from the Homeowners Association. When they couldn't produce the appropriate documentation, she issued a fine in crayon. The invasion collapsed, not because of Earth's military, not because of Earth's science, but because Earth was a giant maze of incomprehensible systems, passive-aggressive signage, and a level of disorganization so intense it looped back around and became a defense mechanism. Planax, defeated, slumped into his chair. He was sticky with printer toner and regret. "What is this planet?" he whispered. Slurpax, now fully converted to wearing Crocs and sipping iced tea, gave a peaceful smile. "This is Earth, sir." Admiral Planax 9 had finally accepted a truth more painful than a laser blast to the shins. Earth could not be conquered by force. Not because it was strong, not because it was wise, but because it was too fundamentally ridiculous to function as an occupied planet. His war council had dissolved into nonsense. Slurpax now ran meditation workshops. Glab had become a certified smoothie shaman and was selling something called interdimensional detox juice that gave hallucinations of your ancestors doing the Macarena. The ship's internal AI now opened every status report with, "Hey bestie, ready to crush another day?" Planax knew he had two options left: retreat in shame or attempt diplomacy. He chose the one that didn't involve apologizing to the Galactic High Command and being reassigned to asteroid patrol. Again. Unfortunately, Earth's response to interplanetary diplomacy was inconsistent. His first diplomatic envoy landed in Sweden. They were greeted with politeness, warm cinnamon buns, and a very confusing game involving throwing heavy metal discs at sand. The aliens misunderstood the rules, accidentally won the regional championship, and were declared honorary citizens. The second envoy landed in New Jersey. They were mugged. Planax decided to send a personal representative, senior negotiator Prilneth III, trained in over 400 cultures, fluent in 92 languages, and capable of resolving disputes between species that communicate solely through smells. The mission lasted 17 minutes. Prilneth was intercepted by a group of conspiracy theorists who insisted that he was actually a lizard in a costume, then dragged him to a basement podcast where he was forced to debate a man wearing 3 tinfoil hats and a t-shirt that read, "The moon is a lie." He escaped by pretending to be a weather balloon. After that, all official diplomatic attempts were quietly cancelled. And then came Jerry. Jerry was not technically authorized to negotiate on behalf of Earth. He was a used car salesman from Nebraska with a firm handshake, an outdated Bluetooth earpiece, and a tragic confidence in his own charisma. He happened to stumble upon an alien scout craft that had broken down outside his dealership. Jerry made contact. He brought coffee. He offered snacks. He tried to sell them a 2003 sedan with just a few issues under the hood. Within hours, he'd convinced 3 alien soldiers to trade plasma rifles for timeshare condos. Somehow Jerry ended up on the flagship. No one invited him. He just walked in, handed Planax a business card that read Jerry, Human Solutions Consultant, and sat down like he owned the galaxy. Planax opened his mouth to scream, then realized he had no strength left. Jerry smiled and leaned forward. "Listen, big guy, you're going about this all wrong. You don't invade Earth, you network it." Planax blinked. "What? See, we're not a top-down species. You can't scare us into submission. You've got to distract us, overwhelm us. Give us a loyalty program, a trending hashtag, and a limited time offer, and we'll do anything you want. Slurpax, who had been listening from behind a potted plant, nodded sagely. He's not wrong, sir. That was the beginning of the accord. Not a treaty, not a surrender. More like a handshake written on a napkin during a backyard barbecue hosted by someone's uncle. Earth didn't negotiate through diplomats. Earth negotiated through awkward social situations, cold drinks, and the phrase, "Hey, while you're here," so it was decided. A neutral site was chosen for the official proceedings, Gary's backyard. Gary, the technician who accidentally started all this, had a grill, a folding table, and exactly one lawn chair that didn't sink when you sat in it. Representatives from both sides session. Planax didn't attend. He sat alone on the bridge, watching the stars. This hadn't been the invasion he wanted. It had been stranger, louder, and somehow stickier. But maybe, just maybe, it had become something else entirely. It was exactly what it sounded like. The invaders had accidentally integrated into local communities, not as overlords, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. The shift hadn't been strategic. It had been gradual, ridiculous, and entirely driven by snacks, small talk, and Earth's relentless ability to absorb nonsense without collapsing. In the quiet suburb of Brookview Hills, a battle mech now mowed lawns every Tuesday. It was repurposed by an alien named Zerb, who after losing 3 consecutive laser duels to a Roomba, decided to change careers. Zerb now charged $20 per yard, offered optional trimming services, and was considering a loyalty punch card system. In a nearby town, 2 alien commandos ran a hot dog stand. They didn't understand the concept of meat or bread or condiments, but they did understand customer satisfaction. The stand's name, for reasons never fully explained, was Vina Protocol. It had a 5-star rating and a cult batch to extract key personnel and reboot the invasion. It made it as far as Earth's lower orbit before being intercepted by a chain of prank calls, a fake delivery order for 17 pizzas, and a barrage of messages asking for the Wi-Fi password, please. The crew panicked and retreated. Admiral Planax 9, now technically Earth's High Coordinator of Intercultural Affairs, a title given to him at a school fundraiser he didn't know he was attending, had not adjusted well. He spent his days pacing the bridge of his once mighty flagship, which now doubled as a floating tourist attraction. It had a gift shop. Children came aboard for birthday parties. There was a photo booth where guests could wear fake antennae and pretend to scream as they surrendered to the alien overlords. He tried to give one last motivational speech to his crew. "We must remember who we are. We are warriors. We are the teeth of the Dominion." Slurpax, sipping a lemonade, replied, "Sir, I'm already booked for 3 PTA meetings this week, and I promised to chaperone a field trip to the planetarium. Also, Cheryl's goat yoga class is tomorrow, and we're low on mats." "Who is Cheryl?" "Bloopnark. He goes by Cheryl now." Planax stared at him. "I once burned an entire continent to the ground." "Cool," said Slurpax, flipping through coupons. "Have you tried the peach cobbler from that diner on 5th? Transcendental." The truth was undeniable. Earth had not only resisted occupation, it had reversed it. Without ever realizing it, humans had colonized their invaders, not with violence, not with advanced tech, but with culture, with clutter, with things that made no logical sense and yet somehow held entire societies together. Credit cards, punchlines, public holidays, jazz, complaint forms, local sports rivalries, conspiracy theories about furniture stores that were definitely hiding something. Earth didn't just absorb you, it rewrote you. And for some of the aliens, this new life was addictive. They liked sitcoms. They liked slow walks through garden centers. They liked having arguments about whether pineapple belonged on pizza and then solving those arguments by ordering both kinds and eating too much of each. The longer they stayed, the more they forgot what they'd come to do. Back in the galactic capital, the High Command was baffled. They had lost contact with multiple divisions. Their long-range scanners picked up bizarre energy signatures that corresponded not to weapons, but to music festivals, farmers' markets, and amateur fireworks shows. One transmission, intercepted weeks later, simply said, "We're good, don't come." Another read, "Bring dip." Some believed it was a trap. Others believed it was enlightenment. But one thing was clear: something had changed. Something irreversible. And Earth, messy, noisy, deeply inefficient Earth, was at the center of it. It was supposed to be a historical entry in the archives of the Galactic Dominion, a warning, a case study, a firm, practical explanation of why you never attack a species that considers Black Friday a cultural holiday. But somewhere along the way, the report got weird. Because how do you accurately describe a planet where traffic laws are suggestions, small talk is weaponized, and one of the most watched events each year involves people throwing an inflated ball and screaming at televisions while wearing matching shirts? Admiral Plarnax 9 tried. He really did. He sat down with every intention of composing a formal debrief for the Dominion Grand Council. He outlined key events, tactical failures, socio-cultural entanglements. But the longer he typed, the harder it became to explain how an interstellar war had been derailed by a chilly cook-off and a flash mob performance of Total Eclipse of the Heart in a supermarket. By paragraph 5, he gave up and stapled a handwritten note to the front that simply said, "Do not." The Dominion never sent a follow-up. Plarnax still lived aboard the Irrefutable Victory, though no one called it that anymore. Locals referred to it as the big floaty thing with the nacho stand. It remained parked 3 miles above a cornfield in Kansas, occasionally drifting off course whenever someone messed with the gravity controls to make zero-G bowling more exciting. Earth's governments, in their own earthy way, had accepted the situation without truly understanding it. Someone wrote a law that defined extraterrestrial residents as tourists with long-term enthusiasm. It passed unanimously because no one read the fine print, and also there was free coffee in the voting room that day. International agencies adapted as best they could. NASA released a revised mission statement. "We don't know what's going on anymore, but we're trying our best." Tourism soared. Alien-themed merchandise exploded. Someone published a cookbook titled Cooking with Plarnax, which included suspiciously few recipes and far too many footnotes about existential dread. The aliens blended in with increasing ease. Some changed their names to things like Greg. Others didn't bother and simply introduced themselves with a dramatic cough and a gesture toward the sky. Every now and then, Plarnax would walk the halls of his ship, pass by crew members debating whether coffee was a beverage or a survival mechanism, and remember that there was a time, not long ago, when they had all been conquerors. Not anymore. Now they were just residents of Earth. The planet that didn't destroy its enemies, it confused them into submission. The Dominion eventually sent one last message, an encrypted communique routed through 17 satellites and a diplomatic courier shaped like a novelty pen. It arrived on Plarnax's console with flashing red text and the seal of the Supreme Command. "Report status," it said. Plarnax stared at it for a long time. Then, with a sigh, he dictated his reply. "This is Admiral Plarnax 9. The invasion has been reclassified. Hostilities terminated. Local resistance too. Existential. Tactical success probability approaching 0. The humans have parties, sir, constantly, for things that do not warrant celebration. They invite us. We go. We bring snacks. We play games where rules change mid-round and no one keeps score. We argue about pizza toppings with passion, usually reserved for civil wars. We are lost in their culture. We are deeply embedded. There is no extraction. He paused, then added, "We have been earthed." He hit send. The system blinked. Message received. No further orders came. Down below, on the planet that rewrote the invasion manual just by existing, life continued. Strange, loud, illogical, beautifully disorganized. A species that built monuments, forgot anniversaries, survived wars, started dance trends, wrote poetry about soup, and accidentally conquered a galactic armada through a combination of hospitality and complete disregard for standard protocol. Earth was not a death world. It was something far more dangerous. It was relatable.
Outside of the galaxy locally referred to as Milky Way. Scouts log, entry 9,211,104. I have concluded after many stellar cycles of scouting, observing, and the like, that this galaxy, the one called Milky Way by its preeminent species, may appear ideal for conquest. Recommended course of action, however, is to not engage. Neft the highest starts before he lets out a long, low sigh, something he inadvertently picked up from the humans he had been observing for some time now. It was odd, he knew, but these humans who didn't know he existed somehow still impacted him. In their words, they were rubbing off on him. Being a Trefalian, the thought of touching another being seemed disgusting and was understandably forbidden, but the human term didn't actually refer to touching one another. Neft stands from his seat and surveys the cockpit around himself for a few beats. It is brimming with technologies, ones that the humans would kill to have. He knew because he had studied their behaviors, and he knew they would want everything that his masters had created. The humans wanted it because they knew as well as he did that everything here could be used for weapons. Everything is weapons with these humans, Neft thinks, somewhat surprised by the thought. Everything is a weapon in the eyes of the humans. Everything can be bested. And yet they do not conquer as thoroughly as my masters, the ones that the humans refer to as the war makers. I'm shocked they even know of the existence of my masters. However, shocked or not, this changes nothing. Walking over to his nourishment station, Neft retrieves a sad imitation of the juice from his homeworld and childhood from the food fabricator. He longed for the comfort and familiarity of home, but he knew that he'd never see his home star again. He wasn't the master of his own life, not anymore. Returning to his seat, Neft prepares to continue his final report on the so-called Milky Way. He hated what he knew he'd be saying. His words could kill millions or billions of the humans that he had grown to admire. Despite their short lives and odd habits, Neft saw the humans as a sort of equal to himself. He admired them as well. Wetting his tongue with the mucus gland directly over his oral passage, Neft resumes his report. I advise against engaging the humans for the sole reason that they seem to be preparing for something. Despite my sincerest efforts and the combined power of every computation machine available to me, I was unable to ascertain what these humans perceived as such a threat, and this concerns me. No other race that I have encountered in my many, many stellar cycles of life have ever prepared for military engagement as the humans have. Their fleets are 964 times larger than even the most militaristic races that I have observed, and that were later conquered. These massive human fleets only pertain to their active military vessels, and not the ones that have been decommissioned. The humans refer to this as mothballing, and these mothballed ships are kept in a state that allows them to readily re-enter service. The humans possess industrial capacity to replace their entire fleets within a short period of time as well, should they lose them in the opening days of conflict. Aside from their ships, the humans also have standing military forces that are many times greater than even the most warlike people I have observed. Even the greatest militaries in all of the records you have made available to me are dwarfed by the human military might. The only force I am aware of that is greater than that of humanity is the Kaldrat Nexadraxi, your servants. The humans also have military outposts on the fringes of their galaxy that serve as listening stations, and they are watching for any and all activities from beyond their known galaxy. There is a cluster of such stations on the most likely invasion point that the Kaldrat Nexadraxi would take, should you choose to heed the previous plans for invasion. This amassing of such overwhelming forces can only mean that the humans are aware of an outside threat. I suspect this threat that they know of could be us, but other gathered forces elsewhere in the human-held galaxy seem to suggest that they know of other threats beyond the segments of space that I have observed them visiting and gathering information on. This is quite concerning. Neft takes a few steadying breaths in order to regain his composure. His gills and lungs had been damaged in the war against the Kaldrat Nexadraxi long ago, and they were scarred to the point that he was unable to speak for extended periods. With one final deep breath, Neft says, "End report." Sighing once more, Neft rises and returns to his study. Scattered all around the study are data pads, data crystals, and even some scrawled notes on the walls, his desk, and on many sheets of paper. Looking down at one of the papers, Neft can't help but feel a sense of amusement. Every sentient race of the universe that he had encountered had developed paper or something that served a similar purpose. Even those without sight made use of paper-like substances. It was one of the many technologies that tied sentients together, despite the great distance between them all. Lowering himself to a squatting position near his desk, Neft pores over his notes yet one more time. He needed answers. He had to know why the humans would prepare for a threat from beyond their galaxy when, according to everything he knew, there was absolutely no reason that the humans could possibly know about the threats beyond. No other race had ever gone to such great lengths to secure their borders from invasion from without, and yet the humans seemed to know much more than they disclosed. It was as if the humans had the ability to see the future itself, which was an absolute impossibility. No race had ever exhibited such a skill, even though many pretended. Neft stares at his notes, at the many references of humans warring with themselves, with races within their own galaxy, and with imaginary enemies and things the humans called war games. The closest thing he had to a reason for their building up of forces on their borders was their war games, but no race that ever had similar activities thought to prepare for threats they had never encountered like this. The Kaldrat Nexadraxi, should they be sent to attack humanity, would suffer immense losses, unforgivable ones. Losses so high that Neft knew he would be held to account for said losses, and he would pay with his life. There was a distinct chance that the undefeated Kaldrat Nexadraxi would even lose a war with the humans. According to every computation model, the chance of failure stood at 30%. No other race in the history of Neft's masters had ever had even a 1% chance of success in a war. That's what made Neft so nervous. The reason why the humans only stood a 30% chance of repelling an attack was because they were presently divided. There was something they called a ceasefire between the unified coalition and a disorderly amalgamation of human-controlled planets and systems opposite that organized coalition. The disorderly planets had once been unified under the name Alexandrians, but that had been a lifetime ago for the humans. Yet even divided, those disorganized worlds would not bend the knee to their apparent betters. None of this made sense. Looking to another set of notes, Neft wheezes and then injects himself with another Noth Korea treatment to remain awake and lucid enough to continue his work. His hearts race as the medicine reaches them and his mental fog lifts somewhat. Scanning the notes, he dwells on how the humans seemed to be on a war footing, even when there was no war to be had. It was as if the humans were worshippers of war, yet Neft knew they were not. Not in the same manner as the conquered before them. Humans were different. And different was an impossibility. None of the conquered had ever been different. There was never a race doing a new thing. The humans even have a sentence they use from a historical text. They call it a praise. And it states that there is nothing new under the sun. And yet the humans defy even this logic and appear to be something new. New was a threat. New was the very reason why Neft knew the humans had to be subjugated as his own race had been. These humans were special enough that his masters needed them. Studying his notes further, Neft reflects on the treatment of the conquered races of humanity. The many alien races that they had warred with, and then, once the war was over, the humans integrated the defeated aliens into their own society. For the most part, this incorporation was done without threat or bondage, which was also a new thing that Neft failed to comprehend. The humans had old documents, ones written many generations beforehand, that spoke of all men being created equal, and the humans seemed to think, for the most part, that this applied to the other races in their galaxy as well. Even the lowest sentient species were treated well, the very species that Neft's masters would have totally and completely eradicated. None of what the humans did made sense. Neft finds himself mumbling as he reads, considering the threat that the humans pose. I would be a fool to advise an attack, and yet I feel obliged to do so. There is a beep, and then the ship's AI, Neft calls it Beeper, says, "Scout Neft the highest, I must advise you to rest. You have not given your mind or body a chance to recover in 20 cycles." "I cannot," Neft snaps as he studies his notes with greater attention in an act of defiance. He did not appreciate the AI or its constant nagging. The AI did not understand just what kind of mystery these humans were. No self-respecting Trefalian could leave such a mystery unsolved, even if their health and even their very lives were at risk. "You must," Beeper urges. "Were you a human, this would be your 20th year without sleep. Even your own people rested in their first days of discovery." Neft holds up a cool, damp arm. They were not discovering the humans. Now silence. "Very well," Beeper gives in, followed by a quiet beep. Neft knew that he was exhausted. He knew that this could end up being his final mission because his very body was giving out. However, answers had to come. His life was a small price to pay for these answers. Should another Trefalian come to finish what he started, he wanted them to know as much as was possible. The human enigma needed to be addressed. The human enigma had to be conquered. Shaking in awe and anxiety, Neft cries out, "We must make them subjects of my masters. They must bow before them as my people have. The humans cannot continue like this. It is lunacy. No other race would consider actions as these." Slamming his arms against his desk, Neft smashes it to pieces and sends all the research that had been carefully laid out into the air. In a rage, he shouts, "Beeper, resume my report now." "Very well," Beeper sounds, "I am recording now." Staring out into the void beyond his window, Neft looks toward the Milky Way, toward the home of the humans. Shaking still, now in a rage, he says, "Amendment to Scout's log. Entry 9,211,104. It is highly advisable that the humans be brought under the complete and total control of my masters. We must learn what secrets they hold and learn of who they are preparing to war against. Conquest is preferred, but extinction will be required if that is not achievable. It is advisable that the Kaldrit Nexidraxi be sent in immediately. It is advisable that their complete force should be concentrated on a small region of human-controlled space to ensure their success. The usual broad conquest cannot succeed, and my computer models support this. It is advisable that the old machinations and any other remaining forces within the human-controlled galaxy be activated in order to preoccupy the humans and allow for a successful invasion. It is recommended that no effort should be spared, lest the humans retaliate. This is imperative for the continuation of the order of the universe, of which my masters control. Scout Neft the highest, signing out. End report." A few silent moments pass before Beeper asks, "Did you not advise against this mere moments ago?" Neft waves the AI off uselessly. He did not understand the humans, and that was a threat. It was a threat to himself, to his masters, and to the universe itself. Everything had its place. Everything has its order. Every race has its master, save Neft's masters alone. The humans defied all of this. And like the wayward children they were, they had to be brought back into order. No rebellion could be allowed, especially not on a scale like this. Seething, Neft feels hot mucus slipping over his mouth and chin in a manner no Trefalian had felt in hundreds of human centuries. It was something that only happened to the greatest of warriors before battle. It was a warning to any and all who stood against them that they would die. The rebellious humans would either join the fold under Neft's masters, or they would fall. Nothing else could be allowed because the enigmatic humans could not be understood. Surrendering to his body's needs, Neft collapses. Moments later, he breathes his last breath as his heart fails. Neft's final thoughts did not dwell on his home, nor on his slain family. Instead, he thought of the next Trefalian who would finish what he started. Who would understand the humans that Neft failed to? Thank you for listening to this story. If you liked it, be sure to check out some of the author Caleb Fast's published stories on Amazon. I've linked to his best-selling story in the description and comments section. Also, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.
Picture this, the most prestigious university in the galaxy. Think MIT crossed with Hogwarts, but floating in zero-G and populated by beings that make Star Trek aliens look mundane. Now imagine being the only human there, sitting in the back row with a half-eaten sandwich and a TI 84 calculator. Jake Martinez had 3 things going for him at the Zephyrian Institute of Cosmic Sciences: a full scholarship, a decent GPA, and absolutely zero understanding of why everyone kept staring at him like he was about to explode. The floating lecture hall buzzed with alien chatter as Professor Kexthery's crystalline form resonated at precisely 440 hertz, the Zephyrian equivalent of clearing your throat. Around Jake, his classmates settled into their various preferred orientations. The Violian gas beings flickered nervously in their containment suits. The Korthak delegation arranged themselves in their traditional thinking pyramid. Even the normally stoic metalloids had their optical sensors focused forward with unusual intensity. Today, Professor Kexthery announced, her voice creating harmonic overtones that made Jake's teeth itch. We discussed the Mendaka paradox. A collective shiver ran through the audience. Jake looked up from his half-finished sandwich and flipped to a fresh page in his notebook. Mendaka paradox, he wrote, followed by a small doodle of what he thought a Mendaka might look like, sort of like a confused chicken. The professor's form shifted to a deeper purple hue, indicating academic solemnity. For 7,000 cycles, the greatest minds in the galaxy have struggled with this fundamental impossibility. The equations that govern consciousness transfer across dimensional barriers contain an inherent contradiction that has prevented any practical application of transdimensional awareness. Holographic equations materialized in the air, floating in complex three-dimensional arrays. Jake squinted at them, trying to follow along. The math looked familiar, but twisted, like calculus that had been fed through Google Translate several times. The core issue, Kexthery continued, is that consciousness, when projected across dimensional boundaries, creates a recursive loop. The observer observes the observer observing, creating infinite regression. Every attempt to stabilize the equation results in exponential energy requirements that would drain a star. A Violian student flickered rapidly, their species equivalent of raising a hand. Professor, the Alterian Empire's latest attempt required the energy output of 12 systems and still failed to achieve stable transfer. Hesidi, Zeta. The energy requirements grow exponentially with each recursive layer. It is, as the ancient saying goes, like try to lift oneself by pulling on one's own tentacles. Jake frowned at the floating equations, chewing thoughtfully on his peanut butter and a jelly sandwich. Something about the math bothered him. It reminded him of a problem he'd encountered in his quantum mechanics elective back at community college. Professor Kexthery's resonance shifted to a melancholy minor key. The Mendaka paradox represents the ultimate limitation of consciousness itself. It is why telepathic species cannot share thoughts across dimensions, why the hive minds cannot expand beyond their local space-time, and why true universal consciousness remains impossible. The weight of cosmic futility settled over the lecture hall like a heavy blanket. Students exchanged the universal expressions of academic despair, which across species looked surprisingly similar. Jake raised his hand. The entire hall went silent. Even the background hum of the environmental systems seemed to pause. Yes, human Jake? Professor Kexthery's form flickered with what Jake had learned was either curiosity or indigestion. Sorry if this is a dumb question, but why are you treating consciousness like a classical observer? The silence stretched. A metalloid's optical array clicked audibly. Somewhere in the gas being section, a containment suit hissed nervously. What do you mean? The professor asked. Jake gestured at the floating equations with his sandwich. Well, you're applying classical observer mechanics to a quantum consciousness system. But consciousness isn't really an observer in the traditional sense. It's more like a probability field that collapses reality through interaction, right? Professor Kexthery's form went completely transparent, a sign of either deep thought or system failure. If consciousness is quantum, Jake continued, warming to his topic, then you don't get recursive loops because the observation itself changes the system being observed. It's like, he paused, searching for an analogy, like trying to measure your own height while you're still growing. The measurement changes what you're measuring. He pulled out his calculator and started punching in numbers. So instead of treating it as C observing C observing C, You'd treat it as a superposition of all possible observer states until the moment of dimensional transfer, at which point the wave function collapses and you get a single, stable consciousness projection. The hall was so quiet Jake could hear his own heartbeat. "Here," he said, and started sketching on his notebook. "If you replace the classical observer constant with a quantum probability matrix and apply it to..." He squinted at the holographic equations. "That big scary one up there with all the tentacle symbols, you get..." He scribbled for a moment, cross-referenced something on his phone, and looked up. "Yeah, you get a linear energy requirement. No exponential growth. Should be totally doable with like a standard fusion reactor." Jake looked around the hall at the sea of alien faces staring at him. Did I get the math wrong? Professor Kexthery's form had gone completely rigid. Her harmonic frequency had shifted to something Jake's universal translator couldn't parse, but which sounded roughly like a dial-up modem having an existential crisis. "Human Jake," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you suggesting that consciousness is quantum?" "Well, yeah. I mean, that's basic quantum mechanics, right? Everything's quantum at the fundamental level. I thought that was pretty well established." A Korthak in the front row made a sound like a cement mixer having a breakdown. But quantum consciousness is impossible. Consciousness requires classical observer mechanics. The unified theory of cosmic awareness explicitly states. "Oh, that thing." Jake flipped through his notebook. "Yeah, I read that paper for my intro philosophy class. The math's wrong in section 4. They forgot to account for quantum decoherence in neural networks." The hall erupted. Students were flickering, resonating, and making various species-specific sounds of academic distress. Professor Kexthery's form was cycling through colors Jake was pretty sure weren't supposed to exist. Silence. The professor's harmonic blast rattled Jake's teeth. The hall fell quiet except for a few nervous flickers. "Human Jake," she said, her voice carefully controlled, "would you please approach the calculation matrix?" Jake shrugged and walked down to the front of the hall, his sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. The holographic equations towered above him, complex and intimidating. "Show us," Professor Kexthery said. Jake looked at the floating math, pulled out his calculator, and started working. He made a few quick corrections to the observer variables, added what looked like a quantum decoherence factor, and simplified a couple of the more complex integrals using techniques he'd learned in Calc 2. "There," he said, stepping back. "That should work." The equations hung in the air transformed. Where before they had spiraled into recursive infinity, now they resolved into elegant, stable solutions. Professor Kexthery stared at the display. Then she touched her communication panel with a trembling appendage. "This is Professor Kexthery at the Institute," she said, her voice tight. "I need to speak with the Galactic Science Council immediately. We have a situation." Jake raised his hand again. Professor, is this going to be on the test?" The violin next to him fainted, his containment suit hitting the floor with a metallic clang. 2 hours later, the Galactic Science Council was in emergency session. The Institute's Quantum Consciousness Laboratory had successfully demonstrated stable dimensional awareness transfer using Jake's modified equations. The energy requirement was exactly what he'd predicted. Manageable with standard technology, asterisk. The implications were staggering. Instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Shared consciousness networks spanning multiple dimensions. The complete restructuring of how the galaxy understood awareness itself, asterisk. And in the middle of it all sat Jake Martinez, eating a bag of chips and wondering if he'd get extra credit for accidentally revolutionizing the fundamental understanding of consciousness, asterisk. Professor Kexthery approached him as the emergency session continued around them. Her form had stabilized to a calm blue-green. "Human Jake," she said, "do you understand what you've done?" Jake looked up from his chips. Solve the homework problem? You've rewritten the foundation of galactic science. Consciousness transfer, dimensional awareness, quantum telepathy, all of it is now possible because of your equations." Jake nodded thoughtfully. "Cool. So, does that mean I passed the class?" Professor Kexthery's form flickered with what Jake had learned was laughter. Human Jake, I believe you've just passed everything. As the emergency session dissolved into excited planning committees, and the hall filled with the excited chatter of beings contemplating a universe where consciousness itself could be shared across the stars, Jake packed up his notebook and headed for the door. He had a chemistry lab in 20 minutes, and he'd heard they were covering something called molecular bonding theory that the professor claimed was completely unsolvable. Jake smiled and patted his calculator. This was going to be a good semester. And somewhere in the administrative offices of the Zephyrian Institute, a filing clerk updated Jake Martinez's academic record. Under species classification, they hesitated for a moment, then typed, human, handle with care, asterisk. After all, if they'd learned anything today, it was that sometimes the most profound breakthroughs come from the most unexpected sources. And sometimes, just sometimes, the primitive species from the backwater planet might just have figured out things that the rest of the galaxy had been overthinking for millennia. Asterisk. Who knew that the solution to the universe's greatest mysteries could fit on a napkin and be solved with a calculator that cost $30 at Walmart? Asterisk.
Captain Vorgathon Crimplebine was having what could only be described as the worst day of his extraordinarily long life when his ship's navigation computer decided to hiccup at precisely the wrong moment. The Galactic Survey vessel Improbable Hypothesis was supposed to be cataloging dead rocks in Sector 7 Zeta. Nobody cares about this place, but instead found itself hurtling toward a small blue marble that absolutely positively should not have been there according to every star chart in existence. "Captain!" shrieked Navigation Officer Flibber Noodlethwaite, his 3 eye stalks writhing in what could generously be called panic. The quantum displacement matrix just had what I can only describe as a mechanical nervous breakdown. Vorgathon's purple tentacles twitched with annoyance. In his 400 years of space travel, he had never encountered a situation quite like this. The ship's computer, which had the unfortunate habit of developing personality disorders during long voyages, was now cheerfully announcing their arrival at coordinates that didn't exist. "Welcome to your destination," chirped the computer in its insufferably pleasant voice. "Please note that your current location appears to be completely impossible according to all known laws of physics and cartography. Have a wonderful day." Dr. Plinkerton Bumblefrizz, the ship's science officer, was frantically pressing buttons that seemed to mock him with their complete lack of response. "Sir, this is unprecedented. According to our sensors, we've stumbled upon a Class M planet with, oh my stars, liquid water." The revelation hit the bridge like a metaphorical brick to a metaphorical face. In the known galaxy, finding a planet with liquid water was like finding a needle in a haystack, except the haystack was the size of several trillion solar systems, and the needle was invisible. "What are the odds of this happening?" demanded Vorgathon, his voice reaching frequencies that made nearby equipment vibrate sympathetically. "Approximately 42 billion to 1 against, sir," replied the computer helpfully, "which, statistically speaking, means it should be happening right now." Communication specialist Gertrude Flapperwonk was monitoring the planet's electromagnetic emissions with growing bewilderment. "Captain, I'm detecting radio signals from the surface. They appear to be broadcasts of some kind." "Broadcasts?" Vorgathon's voice cracked like a teenage Zephyrian going through molt. You mean there's intelligent life down there?" "Well," Gertrude said thoughtfully, "I'm receiving transmissions about something called reality television, so the intelligent part might be debatable." The bridge fell silent, except for the gentle humming of life support systems and the occasional beep from instruments that seemed to be having their own existential crisis. First contact protocols had been drilled into every member of the Galactic Survey Corps, but those protocols assumed you would actually be looking for intelligent life, not accidentally crash into it during what was supposed to be a routine rock cataloging mission. "Sir," whispered Dr. Bumblefrizz, "what exactly do we do now?" Vorgathon considered this question with the gravity it deserved, which was to say, quite a lot of gravity indeed. Discovering intelligent life was supposed to be a career-defining moment, the sort of thing that got you monuments and possibly your own chapter in galactic history books. Discovering it by accident while lost was the sort of thing that got you court-martialed and possibly fed to the probability worms of Deneb 7. "We observe," he declared with more confidence than he felt. "We study, we learn, and we do not let anyone back at headquarters know we got here by taking a wrong turn at the Crab Nebula." The crew nodded in unanimous agreement, mostly because admitting to gross navigational incompetence was slightly less appealing than facing whatever was waiting for them on the mysterious blue planet below. "Flibber, take us into orbit. Stealthed approach. The last thing we want is to panic the natives." Udi, as the improbable hypothesis descended toward Earth, none of its crew could have predicted that they were about to encounter the most dangerous, unpredictable, and absolutely terrifying species in the known galaxy. They thought they were studying primitive savages. They were wrong, very wrong. The initial scans were, to put it mildly, confusing. Dr. Bumblefrizz found himself staring at readouts that made absolutely no sense according to established xenobiology protocols. "Captain, the dominant species appears to be bipedal, carbon-based, and they seem to have mastered fire." "Fire?" gasped Gertrude. "But that's impossible. Only the most advanced civilizations learn to harness combustion." "There's more," Bumblefrizz continued, his voice growing increasingly high-pitched. "They've somehow managed to split the atom, travel to their moon, and, oh dear Zorbak, they've invented something called social media." The implications were staggering. Any species capable of nuclear fission and space travel should have been catalogued centuries ago. The fact that they had remained hidden until now was either the most remarkable oversight in galactic history or something far more sinister. Vorgathon ordered a closer examination of the planet's surface. What they discovered defied every assumption they had ever made about primitive civilizations. "Captain," reported Flibber, "I'm detecting massive cities, complex transportation networks, and what appears to be a global communication grid. These aren't savages living in caves. These are... What, Flibber?" "These are what?" "These are the most dangerous creatures I've ever encountered." The bridge erupted in nervous chatter. Dangerous creatures were exactly what the Galactic Survey Corps was trained to avoid. Their mission was to catalogue safe civilizations, preferably ones that hadn't figured out how to make weapons more sophisticated than pointy sticks. "Define dangerous," Vorgathon said carefully. Dr. Bumblefrizz cleared his throat nervously. "Well, sir, according to my analysis, these humans, as they call themselves, have managed to weaponize practically everything. They turn metal into projectiles, chemicals into explosives, and atoms into unthinkable devastation. Furthermore," added Gertrude, "their entertainment seems to consist primarily of watching each other engage in ritualized combat, and their literature is filled with stories about conquering the galaxy." Vorgathon's tentacles went rigid with terror. Galactic conquest was typically the hobby of species that had been spacefaring for millennia, not planet-bound primitives who had only recently discovered fire. "Unless... Are you telling me," he said slowly, "that we've stumbled upon a species of natural-born warriors who haven't yet figured out how to leave their planet?" The silence that followed was the kind of silence that speaks volumes, mainly because it was filled with the unspoken realization that they had made a very big mistake. "Permission to suggest immediate retreat, sir," squeaked Navigation Officer Flibber. "Granted," Vorgathon practically shouted. "Set course for anywhere that isn't here. Maximum warp. Actually beyond maximum warp. Invent new levels of warp if necessary." But as Flibber frantically began inputting escape coordinates, the ship's computer chose that moment to deliver what could only be described as the worst possible news at the worst possible time. "I'm terribly sorry to interrupt," the computer announced cheerfully, "but it appears our quantum flux inhibitors have chosen this moment to go on strike. We are temporarily unable to achieve faster than light travel. The bridge fell silent again, except for the sound of Vorgothon's tentacles slapping against his forehead in a gesture that transcended species barriers. "How long until repairs?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Oh, roughly 72 hours, the computer replied, "unless something goes wrong, in which case it could be considerably longer. Statistics suggest there's an 87% chance that something will go wrong." 72 hours. 72 hours orbiting a planet full of weapon-obsessed primates who had mastered nuclear physics and space travel. 72 hours praying that the terrifying creatures below wouldn't notice an alien spaceship hanging around their planet like an unwelcome dinner guest. "Sir," whispered Dr. Bumblefrizz, "I think we should continue our observations for science." Vorgothon stared at his science officer with the expression of someone who had just been asked to juggle live grenades while riding a unicycle. "For science? Think about it, Captain. When will we ever get another chance to study a species like this? These humans are unique. They're simultaneously primitive and advanced, peaceful and warlike, intelligent and completely insane." Against his better judgment, which was screaming at him to fake his own death and hide in the cargo bay, Vorgothon found himself nodding. They were stuck here anyway, and returning to headquarters with a report that said "found scary monkey people, ran away immediately" would probably not advance his career prospects. "Fine," he said, "but we maintain maximum stealth, minimum contact, and if anything goes wrong, we blame it on equipment malfunction." What followed was the most intensive 72 hours of xenoanthropological research in galactic history, and definitely the most bizarre. The crew of the Improbable Hypothesis discovered that humans were not just dangerous, they were impossibly dangerous in ways that defied all logic and reason. "Captain," reported Dr. Bumblefrizz during their second day of observation, "I've been monitoring their global communication networks, and I've made a disturbing discovery. More disturbing than yesterday's revelation that they voluntarily climb mountains for fun. Yes, sir. They appear to engage in something called extreme sports, which consists of deliberately putting themselves in mortal danger for the purpose of entertainment." Vorgothon's headache was reaching epic proportions. "You mean they deliberately risk death for recreational purposes?" "That's not even the worst part, sir. They've also invented something called horror movies, where they pay money to be frightened, and roller coasters, which are mechanical devices designed to simulate fatal accidents." Communication specialist Gertrude looked up from her console with wide eyes. "I've been monitoring their news broadcasts, and apparently they engage in something called politics, which seems to involve groups of humans attempting to convince other humans that their particular method of organizing society is superior, often through the use of loud noises." "Loud noises?" Vorgothon's voice reached frequencies that made nearby metal objects ring sympathetically. "Yes, sir. And when that doesn't work, they sometimes resort to what they call elections, which is a form of ritualized combat where victory is determined by counting pieces of paper." The more they learned about humans, the more convinced the crew became that they had stumbled upon the most terrifying species in the galaxy. These weren't just warriors. They were warriors who had turned survival into an art form. "Sir," said Dr. Bumblefrizz on their third day, "I've completed my analysis of human physiology, and the results are, well, they're absolutely horrifying." Vorgothon braced himself. "How horrifying?" "They're persistence hunters, sir. They don't have claws or fangs or natural armor. Instead, they simply refuse to stop. They can literally run their prey to death through sheer stubborn determination. That's impossible. Furthermore, they have this thing called adrenaline that makes them stronger and faster when they're in danger. They actually become more dangerous when they're scared." Vorgothon's tentacles were now tied in knots of pure anxiety. "What kind of evolutionary pressure creates a species that gets more dangerous when threatened?" "The kind that produces apex predators, sir," Bumblefrizz replied grimly. And that's not all. They've also developed something called pack bonding, which means they form emotional attachments to practically everything. Everything? Everything, sir. Other humans, animals, inanimate objects, abstract concepts, fictional characters. I monitored one human who spent 6 hours crying over a story about a robot that learned to love. The bridge was silent, except for the gentle humming of life support and the occasional whimper from various crew members as they contemplated the implications of what they were learning. "Captain," said Gertrude quietly, "I think we need to face the possibility that we've discovered something unprecedented in galactic history." "What's that?" "A species that's simultaneously the most dangerous and most emotionally unstable creatures in the known universe. They're capable of incredible violence, but they also rescue injured animals and cry at sad movies." "That makes no sense." "None of it makes sense, sir. They live on a planet that's actively trying to kill them. Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, diseases, poisonous animals, and their response is to thrive. They've spread to every continent, adapted to every climate, and turned survival into a competitive sport." Vorgothon was beginning to understand why no one had catalogued humans before. Any sensible survey crew would have taken one look at this planet and marked it "Do Not Approach" in large, friendly letters. "Sir," said Navigation Officer Flibber hesitantly, "repairs are almost complete. We can leave in approximately 6 hours." For the first time in 3 days, Vorgothon felt something approaching relief. They would escape with their lives, file their report, and let someone else figure out what to do about the terrifying monkey people of Sol System. That's when the proximity alarms started screaming. "Captain!" shouted Gertrude, her voice climbing to frequencies that made nearby equipment vibrate in sympathy. "I'm detecting multiple spacecraft approaching our position." "Human spacecraft?" Vorgothon's tentacles went rigid with terror. "No, sir. These are Galactic Confederation vessels, 3 cruisers and a battleship." The bridge erupted in chaos as crew members ran around in circles, bumped into each other, and generally behaved like people who had just realized they were about to be caught red-handed doing something they absolutely should not have been doing. "How did they find us?" demanded Vorgothon. "Unknown, sir," replied Flibber. "But they're demanding immediate surrender and preparation for boarding." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Admiral Vorgothon Crumplethwaite of the Galactic Confederation Navy. His expression suggested that he had not traveled all this way to deliver good news. "Captain Vorgothon Crimplebine of the survey vessel Improbable Hypothesis," the Admiral's voice boomed across the bridge. "You are hereby charged with gross violation of First Contact Protocols, unauthorized xenological research, and failure to report discovery of intelligent life." Vorgothon's tentacles drooped with defeat. "Admiral, I can explain." "Explain. You've been spying on an uncontacted civilization for 3 days. Do you have any idea what kind of diplomatic incident this could cause?" "But sir, we discovered them by accident." "Accident? You accidentally spent 72 hours conducting detailed observations of their society, culture, and technology?" When put that way, it did sound rather damning. Vorgothon was trying to formulate a response that wouldn't result in him being court-martialed and fed to something unpleasant when Dr. Bumblefrizz stepped forward. "Admiral," he said carefully, "before you arrest us, you should know that we've made a discovery of unprecedented importance to galactic security." Admiral Crumplethwaite's expression suggested that he was not in the mood for excuses, but professional curiosity won out over bureaucratic anger. "What kind of discovery?" "Sir, the dominant species on this planet represents the most significant threat to galactic peace and stability ever encountered." "Threat? They haven't even achieved interstellar travel." "Yet, sir. But when they do..." Dr. Bumblefrizz paused dramatically. "Admiral, these humans are natural-born warriors with an instinctive understanding of warfare, technology, and survival that surpasses anything in our databases. They've weaponized their entire planet. The Admiral's expression shifted from anger to concern. Explain. They live on a world that's constantly trying to kill them, and their response has been to become the most dangerous predators in their local ecosystem. They hunt for sport, fight for entertainment, and turn every challenge into a competition. Furthermore, added Gertrude, their capacity for violence is matched only by their capacity for emotional attachment. They form bonds with everything they encounter, which means they'll fight to the death for causes that more logical species would simply abandon. Admiral Crumplethwaite was beginning to look less like an angry bureaucrat and more like someone who had just realized the magnitude of the situation. Are you telling me that there's an entire planet of warrior poets down there? Worse, sir, said Vorgothon, finding his voice. They're warrior poets who haven't figured out they're supposed to be the galaxy's dominant military force. They think they're just normal. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that indicated minds being blown and paradigms being shifted. The discovery of humans wasn't just a first contact situation, it was a potential extinction event for every other species in the galaxy. Admiral, Dr. Bumblefrizz continued, we estimate that once humans achieve interstellar travel, they'll spread throughout the galaxy within 500 years, and based on their history, they'll do it by being helpful. Helpful? Yes, sir. They'll want to make friends, share technology, solve problems, and generally make everything better. They'll be so enthusiastic about helping that they'll accidentally become the dominant species without even trying. The Admiral's face had gone through several shades of color that didn't exist in most species' visual spectrum. You're telling me that we've discovered a species of accidental conquerors? That's exactly what we're telling you, sir, Vorgothon replied. And the worst part is, they'll feel terrible about it. The bridge of the Admiral's ship had gone completely silent. Even the background hum of life support seemed muted, as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Sir, said the Admiral's communication officer, I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. A transmission? From the humans? Yes, sir. It appears to be directed at us specifically. Dilsum. The main view screen shifted to show a middle-aged human woman sitting behind what appeared to be a desk made of wood, which was apparently a popular construction material on their planet. She was smiling, which Dr. Bumblefrizz had learned was a human expression that could indicate anything from friendliness to impending violence. Hello there, the human said cheerfully. I'm Ambassador Patricia Whistlebottom of the United Nations Office for Extraterrestrial Affairs. We've been monitoring your ships for the past several hours, and we thought it might be time for a proper introduction. The collective sound of jaws dropping was audible throughout both ships. You've been monitoring us? Admiral Crumplethwaite sputtered. Oh yes, Ambassador Whistlebottom replied. We noticed your ship 3 days ago, but we didn't want to be rude and interrupt what appeared to be important scientific observations. We figured you'd introduce yourselves when you were ready. Dr. Bumblefrizz leaned over to Vorgothon. Sir, they knew we were here the entire time. Furthermore, the ambassador continued, we've prepared a small welcome gift as a gesture of friendship. We understand that first contact situations can be somewhat awkward, so we've put together a care package with some samples of human culture, technology, and cuisine. Cuisine, whispered Gertrude. They want to feed us. We're also very excited to learn about your civilization, Ambassador Whistlebottom went on. We have so many questions. What's your home planet like? How does faster-than-light travel work? Do you have any interesting sports? We'd love to organize some friendly competitions. Admiral Crumplethwaite looked like someone who had just been invited to participate in his own execution. Friendly competitions. Oh yes, we have this wonderful game called football. Well, we call it soccer in some places, but that's a long story, and we think you might enjoy it. It's quite simple, really. You just try to get a ball into a goal without using your hands. Without using their hands? Flibber whispered in horror. What kind of species deliberately handicaps itself for entertainment? The ambassador was still talking. We've also prepared demonstrations of human music, art and literature. We have this fascinating genre called science fiction, where we imagine what contact with alien species might be like. It's quite fun, really, though I suspect some of our authors got things rather wrong. Sir, Dr. Bumblefrizz said quietly to Admiral Crumplethwaite, I recommend we accept their invitation. Are you insane? Think about it, sir. They've demonstrated that they detected our stealth technology, tracked our movements, and prepared for first contact without showing any signs of fear or aggression. They're either the most advanced species we've ever encountered, or they're so dangerous that they don't need to be afraid of us. Or both, added Vorgothan helpfully. Admiral Crumplethwaite stared at the screen, where Ambassador Whistlebottom was still cheerfully explaining various aspects of human culture with the enthusiasm of someone who had been waiting their entire life for this moment. Very well, he said finally. Ambassador Whistlebottom, we accept your invitation for cultural exchange. Wonderful, the ambassador beamed. We'll prepare a landing site at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Don't worry about atmospheric compatibility. We've taken the liberty of analyzing your ship's emissions, and we've prepared appropriate accommodations. The transmission ended, leaving both alien ships floating in space with their crews trying to process what had just happened. Sir, said Vorgothan's communication specialist Gertrude, they analyzed our emissions. That means they reverse-engineered our atmospheric requirements from our exhaust, Dr. Bumblefrizz explained. In other words, they figured out what we breathe by studying what we throw away. That's impossible. Sir, said Admiral Crumplethwaite's science officer, I've been running calculations, and I believe the humans may have been expecting us. Expecting us? How could they be expecting us? Unknown, sir. But their response time was too fast for a civilization that supposedly never encountered aliens before. Either they're remarkably adaptable, or they've been preparing for this scenario for some time. 6 hours later, representatives from both alien ships found themselves sitting in what humans called a conference room in a building that humans called the United Nations. The room was decorated with flags from various human nations, which apparently were subdivisions of their planet based on geographical and cultural differences. Ambassador Whistlebottom was there, along with several other humans, including General Michael Sledgehammer O'Reilly, Dr. Elizabeth Quantum Mechanics, which was apparently her actual name, and Professor Harold Whatnot of the Department of Xenolinguistics. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Whistlebottom said warmly. We're absolutely delighted to meet you. This is such an exciting day for our species. Admiral Crumplethwaite cleared his throat nervously. Ambassador, we must confess that our presence here was somewhat accidental. Oh, we know, she replied cheerfully. Your navigation error was quite obvious from your approach vector. Wrong turn at the Crab Nebula, wasn't it? The silence that followed was the kind of silence that indicated minds being boggled beyond their normal capacity for boggling. How did you know that? Vorgothan demanded. Professor Whatnot smiled. We've been monitoring galactic radio transmissions for decades. Your distress signal when your navigation computer malfunctioned was quite clear, even though it was in a language we'd never heard before. You've been monitoring galactic transmissions? Oh, yes. We've catalogued over 3,000 different species based on their communications. We were wondering when someone would finally drop by for a visit. Dr. Bumblefrizz was making notes at a speed that suggested his writing implement might catch fire from friction. You catalogued us? Well, not specifically you, Dr. Quantum Mechanics replied, but we identified the Galactic Confederation about 15 years ago. Quite an impressive organization, really. We've been particularly interested in your approach to interstellar trade agreements. You've been studying our trade agreements? Among other things, we found your tax code fascinating from an anthropological perspective, very telling about a species' social priorities tax codes. General O'Reilly leaned forward. What we're really interested in is your military technology, not to copy it, you understand, but to make sure our defensive systems are compatible. We wouldn't want any unfortunate misunderstandings if we ever need to fight alongside you. Fight alongside us? Well, naturally, any species advanced enough for interstellar travel must face similar threats. We figure it's only a matter of time before we encounter something that wants to eat everyone, and when that happens, we'll need to work together. The alien delegation exchanged glances that conveyed volumes of information, most of it along the lines of, "We're doomed," and "I told you so." "Ambassador," Admiral Crumplethwaite said carefully, "may I ask how long your species has been preparing for contact with galactic civilization?" "Oh, about 60 years, give or take," she replied casually. "Ever since we figured out radio astronomy. We realized it was only a matter of time before we met our neighbors, so we thought we should be ready." "Ready how?" "Well, we established the Office for Extraterrestrial Affairs, developed first contact protocols, learned several galactic languages, and prepared contingency plans for various scenarios. We also stockpiled coffee." Coffee? It's a caffeinated beverage. We figured any civilized species would appreciate good coffee. Would you like some? Before anyone could answer, she was pouring dark liquid from a thermal container into small cups. The smell was actually quite pleasant, Dr. Bumblefrizz noted, though he wasn't sure if that made the situation better or worse. "The thing is," Ambassador Whistlebottom continued as she served coffee, "we've been ready for this conversation for quite some time. What we weren't prepared for was how nice you all are." "Nice? Oh yes, we expected aliens to be either hostile conquerors or completely incomprehensible. We never imagined you'd be so similar to us. You explore, you study, you make mistakes, you get embarrassed when you're caught doing something awkward. It's really quite endearing." Vorgathon accepted a cup of coffee and took a tentative sip. It was actually quite good, which somehow made everything more terrifying. "Ambassador," he said slowly, "what exactly do you think happens next?" "Well," she said thoughtfully, "we'd like to apply for membership in the Galactic Confederation, if you'll have us. We understand there's probably a process, paperwork, that sort of thing. We're quite good with paperwork." The alien delegation stared at her with expressions that suggested their understanding of the universe had just been fundamentally altered. "You want to join us?" "Of course. We're all sapient species trying to make our way in a vast and mysterious universe. Why wouldn't we work together? We have resources, technology, and enthusiasm to contribute. Plus, we make excellent coffee." Admiral Crumplethwaite's tentacles were now twisted into shapes that defied several laws of physics. "Ambassador, I must point out that joining the Galactic Confederation is a process that typically takes centuries. There are cultural assessments, technological evaluations, diplomatic protocols." "Oh, we've already completed most of those," Professor Whatnot interrupted, producing a stack of documents that was approximately the size of a small building. "We took the liberty of filling out the standard forms based on information we gathered from monitoring your communications. We weren't sure about some of the legal terminology, but we did our best." "Doctor," Bumblefrizz accepted the documents with trembling appendages. A quick scan revealed that they were, indeed, properly completed Galactic Confederation membership applications, filled out in flawless galactic standard, and accompanied by detailed cultural assessments, technological specifications, and economic projections. "This is impossible," he whispered. "These forms are classified. They're not available to non-member species. We extrapolated them from bureaucratic patterns in your public communications," Dr. Quantum Mechanics explained cheerfully. "It wasn't difficult once we understood your administrative structure. Bureaucracy is remarkably consistent across species, we've found. You reverse-engineered our classified documents from public communications. Is that impressive? We weren't sure if it was particularly clever or if we were missing something obvious." The room fell silent, except for the sound of Admiral Crumplethwaite's breathing apparatus, working overtime, and the gentle rustle of papers as Dr. Bumblefrizz continued reading through humanity's membership application. "Sir," he whispered to the Admiral, "this is the most thorough membership application I've ever seen. They've included technological specifications for theoretical devices they haven't even built yet, detailed plans for integrating their economy with galactic markets, and, oh dear Zorbuk, they've designed their own starships. General O'Reilly smiled. We thought we should be prepared. Can't join a galactic civilization without proper transportation, after all. You've designed starships. Well, we had to, didn't we? We couldn't very well expect you to ferry us around forever. We've prepared manufacturing facilities and trained crews. We should have our first interstellar vessels ready within 6 months. 6 months? Admiral Crumplethwaite's voice reached frequencies that made nearby glassware vibrate. It takes most species decades to develop interstellar capability. Really? We figured it was just a matter of scaling up existing technology and solving the faster-than-light problem. Once we understood the principles from monitoring your communications, the engineering was fairly straightforward. Dr. Quantum Mechanics leaned forward conspiratorially. The tricky part was miniaturizing the quantum flux generators. We had to develop some rather exotic materials, but our manufacturing base is quite adaptable. You've already solved faster-than-light travel? In theory, we haven't tested it yet. We thought it would be rude to go flying around the galaxy without permission. But the mathematics work out beautifully. Vorgathon looked around the room at his fellow aliens, all of whom appeared to be having some form of existential crisis. Ambassador, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Are you trying to be terrifying? Ambassador Whistlebottom looked genuinely surprised. Terrifying? Why would we be terrifying? We're just trying to be good neighbors. Good neighbors don't usually reverse engineer classified technology and develop interstellar capability in their spare time. Don't they? We thought that was just basic courtesy. You can't really participate in galactic civilization without the proper tools, can you? Professor Whatnot nodded sagely. We've observed that most species seem to struggle with the transition from planetary to galactic thinking. We thought we'd save everyone time by handling the preparations in advance. Besides, added Dr. Quantum Mechanics, we're very good at copying things and making them better. It's sort of our specialty as a species. Oh, the alien delegation exchanged glances that communicated complex concepts, such as we're witnessing the birth of a galactic superpower, and they don't even realize what they've done. Ambassador, Admiral Crumplethwaite said carefully, I think there may be some things about galactic civilization that you don't fully understand. Oh, undoubtedly. That's why we're so excited to learn. What are we missing? Well, for one thing, most species find interstellar travel quite challenging. The technology is complex, the distances are vast, and the resources required are enormous. Yes, we noticed that from your communications. That's why we developed more efficient methods. More efficient methods? Dr. Quantum Mechanics smiled modestly. We managed to reduce the energy requirements by about 90% and increase travel speeds by roughly 300%. It's all about quantum field harmonics. We can show you the equations if you're interested. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that indicated civilizations being accidentally overthrown by enthusiastic neighbors with good intentions. Furthermore, General O'Reilly added, we've prepared several other improvements to standard galactic technology, more efficient life support systems, better communication arrays, improved defensive capabilities. We thought they might be useful contributions to the Confederation. You've improved our defensive capabilities. Well, we noticed some potential vulnerabilities in your standard designs. Nothing major, just a few adjustments that should improve survival rates by 40 or 50% in combat situations. Vorgathon was beginning to understand why no survey crew had ever reported finding humans before. Any reasonable species would have taken one look at this situation and immediately declared the Sol system off-limits to all civilized life. Ambassador, he said weakly, what exactly do you expect will happen when you join the Galactic Confederation? Oh, we're quite excited about that. We're looking forward to sharing resources, exchanging cultural knowledge, participating in scientific research, and helping with whatever challenges the galaxy might face. Helping with challenges. Of course, we assume there must be various problems that require cooperative solutions. Hostile species, natural disasters, resource shortages, that sort of thing. We're very good at solving problems. What makes you think you'd be good at solving galactic problems? Ambassador Whistlebottom looked surprised by the question. Well, we've had quite a lot of practice with planetary problems. How different could it be, really? The answer, as it turned out, was not very different at all. And that was the most terrifying realization of the entire conversation. Within 48 hours of that first meeting, the humans had somehow managed to turn first contact into what could only be described as the most efficiently organized cultural exchange in galactic history. They had prepared translation devices, cultural orientation packages, and what they called tourist guides for visiting aliens. "We thought you might like to see some of our cities," Ambassador Whistlebottom explained as she led the alien delegation through something called Times Square, which appeared to be a concentrated dose of human civilization designed to overwhelm the senses. "This is New York. It's not our biggest city, but it's quite representative of human urban planning." Admiral Crumplethwaite stared up at the towering structures that humans had built for no apparent reason other than to see if they could. "You built these for fun?" "Oh no, these are office buildings. We built them because we needed places to work. The fun buildings are much more impressive." Dr. Bumblefrizz was frantically taking notes while trying not to be trampled by the constant stream of humans who seemed to be in perpetual motion. "Ambassador, how many humans live in this hive?" "About 8.5 million in the city proper, 20 million in the metropolitan area. It's actually quite cozy once you get used to it." 20 million? Vorgathon's voice cracked like a teenager going through molt. "In one city? Oh, that's nothing. Tokyo has nearly 40 million people. We can visit there next week if you'd like." The alien delegation had stopped walking and was now staring at Ambassador Whistlebottom with expressions that suggested their understanding of mathematics had just been fundamentally challenged. "How many humans are there in total?" Admiral Crumplethwaite asked, in a voice that suggested he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. "Just over 8 billion at last count," she replied cheerfully, "growing at about 75 million per year, though the rate is slowing down as we develop better family planning systems." 8 billion? Is that a lot? We weren't sure how we compared to other species. Dr. Bumblefrizz was doing calculations on his portable computer with the desperate intensity of someone trying to prove that reality was still functioning according to established mathematical principles. "Admiral, most spacefaring civilizations have populations in the hundreds of millions. Some of the larger ones might reach 1 billion. 8 billion is unprecedented," Admiral Crumplethwaite finished grimly. "Oh, we're just getting started," Ambassador Whistlebottom said enthusiastically. "Wait until you see our industrial capacity." The tour that followed was what Dr. Bumblefrizz would later describe in his official report as a systematic demonstration of why humans should probably not be allowed to join galactic civilization for the safety of everyone involved. Indeed, they visited factories that produced goods at rates that defied economic theory, farms that fed billions of people using methods that shouldn't have worked according to agricultural science, and transportation systems that moved millions of humans around their planet every day as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. "The thing about humans," General O'Reilly explained as they watched massive cargo ships moving through something called the Panama Canal, "is that we're really good at scaling things up. If we can do something once, we can usually figure out how to do it 1 million times." "But why would you want to do something 1 million times?" Vorgathon demanded. "Because there are 8 billion of us, and we all need things," the general replied, as if this were perfectly obvious. Professor Whatnot nodded sagely. It's really just a matter of logistics. Once you have the infrastructure in place, expanding production is simply a question of applying the same principles at larger scales. You make it sound easy. Well, it's not easy exactly, but it's not complicated either. You just have to think systematically about resource allocation and process optimization. Dr. Quantum Mechanics smiled. We've gotten quite good at optimization over the centuries. We've had to 8 billion people generate a lot of problems that need solving. The alien delegation was beginning to understand that humans didn't just solve problems. They solved problems so efficiently that they created entirely new categories of problems, which they then solved even more efficiently, creating a feedback loop of increasing capability that had been running for thousands of years. Ambassador, Admiral Crumplethwaite said carefully, what exactly do you think will happen when your species spreads throughout the galaxy? Oh, we've given that quite a lot of thought, she replied enthusiastically. We figure we'll need about 500 years to establish colonies on suitable planets, develop local infrastructure, and create sustainable interstellar trade networks. We've prepared preliminary surveys of approximately 3,000 star systems that look promising for human settlement. 3,000 star systems? Well, we'll need the room, won't we? 8 billion people take up quite a lot of space, and our population is still growing. Plus, we'll want to establish research stations, mining operations, manufacturing centers, agricultural colonies. It adds up quickly. Doctor. Bumblefrizz was making notes at a speed that suggested his writing implement might achieve faster-than-light velocity through pure desperation. You've already planned galactic colonization? Of course. We couldn't very well join the Galactic Confederation without a proper expansion strategy. It wouldn't be responsible. The word responsible hit the alien delegation like a metaphorical brick to a metaphorical face. They were beginning to realize that humans didn't just do things, they did things responsibly, which somehow made everything infinitely more terrifying. Furthermore, Professor Whatnot added, we've prepared contingency plans for various scenarios we might encounter. Hostile aliens, resource conflicts, natural disasters, technological failures, diplomatic crises. We like to be prepared for every possibility. You have contingency plans for everything? Well, not everything, Ambassador Whistlebottom said modestly. Just the first few hundred scenarios we could think of. We'll develop more as we go along and encounter new situations. General O'Reilly leaned forward conspiratorially. The key is flexibility. You can't predict everything that might happen, but you can prepare systems that adapt quickly to changing circumstances. Adaptive systems. Oh yes. We've learned that rigid planning doesn't work very well when you're dealing with complex situations. It's better to create frameworks that can evolve as conditions change. The alien delegation was now experiencing what could only be described as a collective existential crisis. They had encountered a species that didn't just plan for the future, they planned for multiple possible futures and prepared systems to handle scenarios they hadn't even thought of yet. Ambassador, Vorgathon said in a voice that suggested he was hanging onto sanity by his tentacles, may I ask what you think the Galactic Confederation's response will be to your membership application? Oh, we're quite confident it will be approved, she replied cheerfully. We meet all the standard requirements, and we've prepared comprehensive documentation of our qualifications. Plus, we're bringing some rather useful capabilities to the table. Useful capabilities. Dr. Quantum Mechanics smiled. We've solved several problems that seem to challenge other species. Energy efficiency, resource management, rapid technological development, large-scale organization, adaptive planning systems. We think we could make significant contributions to galactic civilization. Admiral Crumplethwaite was beginning to look like someone who had just realized that his quiet retirement was about to be disrupted by the most energetic neighbors in galactic history. Dr. Quantum Mechanics, when you say you've solved these problems, We mean we've developed systematic approaches that consistently produce successful outcomes across a wide range of conditions and scales, she replied, as if she were discussing the weather. Nothing too complicated, really, just applied problem solving. Applied problem solving. You identify the core issues, analyze the available resources, design efficient solutions, implement them systematically, monitor the results, and adjust as necessary. It's quite straightforward once you get the hang of it. The silence that followed was the kind of silence that indicated entire worldviews being quietly dismantled and rebuilt from scratch. "Sir, Doctor," Bumblefrizz whispered to Admiral Crumplethwaite, "I don't think they realize what they've accomplished." "What do you mean?" "They've essentially created a civilization-level problem-solving engine that runs on coffee and enthusiasm. They don't think it's remarkable because to them it's just normal. That's what makes them so terrifying," Vorgothon added quietly. "They've achieved unprecedented levels of capability and they think they're just being polite." 3 days later, the alien delegation found themselves back aboard their ships, preparing to return to Galactic Confederation headquarters with what was possibly the most important report in galactic history. They had learned things about humanity that would fundamentally change how every species in the galaxy understood civilization, technology, and the very concept of intelligent life. "Sir, Doctor," Bumblefrizz said as he compiled his final notes, "how exactly do we explain this to headquarters?" Admiral Crumplethwaite stared out at the blue planet that had somehow managed to turn first contact into a cheerful neighborhood welcome party. "We tell them the truth. We tell them that we've discovered a species that accidentally developed the most advanced civilization in galactic history while thinking they were just trying to be good neighbors. And then what happens? Then we find out whether the Galactic Confederation is ready for humans, or whether humans are going to accidentally take over everything while trying to help." As their ships prepared to depart, a final transmission came from Earth. Ambassador Whistlebottom's smiling face appeared on their screens one last time. "Thank you so much for visiting," she said warmly. "We're so excited about joining the galactic community. We've prepared some gifts for you to take back to your colleagues. Samples of human art, music, literature, and of course, plenty of coffee." "Ambassador," Admiral Crumplethwaite said carefully, "I should mention that your membership application will need to be reviewed by the full Confederation Council. The process could take some time." "Oh, we understand completely. Bureaucracy is important. It ensures that everything is done properly. We'll just continue with our preparations while we wait for approval." "Preparations? Oh yes, we're very excited about contributing to galactic civilization, so we've started working on some projects we think might be helpful. Improved starship designs, more efficient energy systems, better communication networks, enhanced defensive technologies. We want to be ready to help as soon as we're officially members." The transmission ended, leaving the alien ships floating in space, with their crews trying to process the implications of what they had just heard. "Sir," said Vorgothon's navigation officer Flibber, "did she just say they're improving galactic technology while waiting for their membership to be approved?" "That's exactly what she said," Vorgothon replied grimly. "But that means, Admiral Crumplethwaite interrupted, "that by the time we return to headquarters with our report, the humans will probably have revolutionized interstellar travel, solved the galaxy's energy crisis, and invented 12 new technologies we haven't even thought of yet." Dr. Bumblefrizz looked up from his final calculations. "Sir, based on their demonstrated capabilities and development rate, I estimate that within one standard galactic year, humans will possess the most advanced technology in known space. And they'll want to share it with everyone," Vorgothon added helplessly. "Because they think that's what good neighbors do," Admiral Crumplethwaite finished. As the alien ships engaged their faster-than-light drives and departed for Galactic Confederation headquarters, none of their crews could have predicted that they were carrying news that would reshape galactic civilization within a decade. They thought they were reporting the discovery of a dangerous new species. What they were actually reporting was the end of the galaxy as they knew it, and the beginning of something unprecedented in cosmic history. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe isn't a species that wants to conquer everything. Sometimes it's a species that wants to help everyone and actually has the capability to do it. 6 months later, when the first human starships appeared in Confederation space, carrying cargo holds full of improved technology and crews eager to make friends, the galaxy learned what it really meant to have Earth as a neighbor. And while most species eventually agreed that it was probably the best thing that had ever happened to galactic civilization, they also quietly acknowledged that the universe had become a much more interesting place. Some accidents, it turns out, are the best kind of destiny.
No species will ever forget the moment humanity's patience finally snapped. This recorded start, galactic date 47,293.6. I speak into my personal log, adjusting the quantum recorder as I gaze through the observation dome at the blue-green planet below. Professor Ralilak continuing documentation of species 7249 designational. Humans. A bitter laugh escapes my throat. How wrong we were. How catastrophically, monumentally wrong. The Council should have listened to my warnings about classifying them as a Level 2 civilization. But no one ever listens to the ethnoanthropologist. Do the ship's systems hum softly around me as I continue my observation. Earth hangs suspended in the void like a precious gem, deceptively peaceful from this distance. 10 years ago, I stood in this same spot, filled with excitement about first. Now I understand why the ancient texts speak of things better left undisturbed. Preliminary observation period lasted standard 50 cycles. I continue, my 4 hands moving swiftly across the control panel. The Council of 7 Galaxies believed they had identified all crucial aspects of human civilization. There is another harsh laugh, primitive, limited, harmless. The memory surfaces unbidden, Ambassador Talara striding into the council chamber, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with confidence. The humans will make excellent clients, she declared. Their planet's resources will serve the council well, and they'll be grateful for our guidance. I remember shifting uncomfortably in my seat, trying to voice my concerns. But Ambassador, my research indicates. Thank you, Professor Rolidak. She cut me off with a dismissive wave. We value your academic insights, but this is a matter for practical governance. The warning signs were there from the start. We should have noticed when our most sophisticated encryption was broken in mere days. Should have paid attention when our superior technology started being replicated and improved upon within weeks of diplomatic exchanges. But the Council was too busy congratulating themselves on finding another species to add to their collection, too preoccupied with calculating Earth's resource value to notice the steel beneath the human smiles. First contact day, that's when it all began to unravel. The Council decided to demonstrate their power, standard procedure for welcoming new client species. The gathering fleet appeared over every major human city simultaneously, 50,000 ships, a display of overwhelming force meant to ensure peaceful cooperation. I still remember the human response. No panic, no chaos. Just calm voices requesting the fleet's immediate withdrawal, as if they were asking party guests to leave at the end of the night. Ambassador Talara was positively gleeful at their naivety. She delivered the Council's terms with her usual flourish. Earth would be granted protection in exchange for resource rights and technological supervision. The humans would be guided to a proper place in galactic society. Their chief negotiator, a woman named Amanda Blackwood, listened politely to the entire presentation. Then she smiled, not the warm expression we documented in our cultural studies, but something else entirely, something that made my scales ripple with unease. That's a very generous offer, she said, voice dripping with something our translators identified as sarcasm. But we're going to decline. You have 1 hour to remove your ships from Earth's space. The council representatives actually laughed. My dear Talara practically purred, I don't think you understand. This isn't a request. The might of 50,000 ships will be reduced to 0 in 61 minutes. If they remain in their current positions, Blackwood interrupted. "We've been peaceful because we choose to be. Don't make us choose differently." Looking back now, that was the moment. The precise instant when the council should have recognized their catastrophic miscalculation. But centuries of easy victories had made them arrogant. They thought they were dealing with primitives who needed to be taught their place. They didn't understand that humanity's patience was not infinite, that their politeness was not weakness, that their warmth could turn to fire. "End record," I whisper, my voice heavy with the weight of history. The quantum recorder clicks off, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the view of Earth below. Tomorrow, I'll continue documenting how it all fell apart, how the Council's arrogance led to the greatest military and diplomatic catastrophe in galactic. But for now, I simply watch and remember. Remember the day we learned that some species are not meant to be conquered. Some peoples are not meant to be ruled. And humanity. Humanity was never meant to kneel. The observation room feels colder today as I resume my recording. Record start galactic date 47-93.7. The Council's failure with first contact should have been the end. Instead, it was merely the beginning. I pull up the archived footage, watching as various species began their own attempts to gain Earth's favor. The Mercathi offered advanced propulsion technology. The Zentari promised biological immortality. The Drachnid Imperium suggested a military alliance. Each one came with hidden strings, with secret plans to manipulate and control. Each one left with what humans called a bloody nose. Admiral Jessica Porter. The name slips from my mouth with a mixture of respect and fear. She was the first to understand what we were really doing, the first to see through our supposedly benevolent offers. The holographic display shows her first appearance at the Galactic Assembly, tall for a human with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that seemed to pierce through diplomatic facades. She stood before the gathered representatives of 1,000 worlds, her white uniform pristine, her posture radiating quiet strength. "Let me be perfectly clear," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Earth is not a prize to be won. We are not children to be guided.